Now, one of the things that makes Photoshop such a versatile imaging and compositing tool is layers. Layers is really the backbone of the program. It allows you to work non-destructively by stacking images on top of images without actually things interacting and mixing pixels, and you can just add them and delete them anytime you want. Now, when you create an image or open an image inside Photoshop, it has in the Layers panel, in fact, I'm going to drag out the Layers panel so you can see, by default, a background layer. You'll notice it's got a padlock on it. This means that the layer is locked, meaning you can't move it or do anything like that. If you try to, notice it says could not use the Move tool because the layer is locked. Now, to unlock a layer, you have several options. You can simply double-click on it, and a new layer icon or window will pop up, and allowing you to name the layer if you want. And if you don't, just simply click OK, and it goes ahead and unlocks the layer, and now you can move that layer around. Now, when you do that, it reveals the transparency checkered pattern in the background. All this indicates is that this is a transparent background, which again is customizable in the preferences. Now, another way, of course, let me go back a couple of steps here. To unlock the layers, of course, to double-click on, or rather, not double-click, but grab that padlock and drag it to the trash, and that simply unlocks a layer the same way. So you have a number of different options of going about doing that. That is your base layer, the background layer. Now, when you add more images, let's just say, for instance, I've got this image here, and I want to go ahead and drag and drop it over, and I'm adding the Shift key as I do this, and it drops it in the center. Notice what happened here in the Layers panel. It did not add it to this existing layer and mix the pixels together, but rather it created a brand new layer resting right on top of it. Now, the way to think about the Layers panel is really, if you could stand up here at the very top of the Layers panel and look down. Imagine you're looking down several planes of glass, and there's something on each plane of glass. For instance, this image would be on one plane, and you can actually click on these eyeballs and turn them on and off. This image would be on another plane, and then so on and so forth. No matter what you did, whether you created a text layer, for instance, we'll just go ahead and call this the mountains. And I've gone ahead and set my text, and you'll see that it adds it as a text layer. It's still another layer, and I can move it around independently. And this is the beauty of this, is that you can stack pretty much have as many items as you want in a layered document and move those items around independently. You can get rid of them, you can add them, you can do all kinds of things to it. And this is what makes Photoshop that much more forgiving, is that you can really get creative and not ever destroy or mess up any part of your design. So I'm going to turn this text layer off. Now, one of the greatest aspects of layers is, of course, a layer mask. Now, layer masking is the ability to hide or reveal parts of a layer without actually deleting them. Now, what I mean by deleting parts of a layer? Well, on this mountain layer, I'm going to go ahead and into my toolbar and grab the eraser tool. Now, if I go over here, and let's just make the brush with a little good size, and I'm just going to go around the edge here, and it's a soft edge brush, as you'll notice. This has got a soft edge. And I'm just going to paint away the edge here. Notice this is giving me a relatively nice faded edge on my image here. The only problem is I'm actually deleting these pixels as I'm erasing them. They're not going to come back. Now, of course, if I did undo, I can just undo what I just did. But let's just say I painted away these edges and then went on and did some more things. Eventually, I'm not going to be able to go back in my history and bring those elements back. They're gone. I'm deleting these images, these pixels, as I go. Now, if I like the result I get after deleting those pixels, then great. I've done what I've needed to do. But let's just say I get to a certain point where I'm like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to be able to bring those back. It's not going to be able to happen. So you're really kind of hurting yourself by deleting parts of a layer. Now, a layer mask, let me just go ahead and undo back to the beginning here. Now, I only did a few brush strokes there, so undoing a certain amount will actually bring those elements back. But again, if you were to continue to work and do numerous things, eventually you're going to get to a point where you can't bring those pixels back. Now, a layer mask is simply another image attached to the layer. If I go, let me show you how I added that again. On the layer, if you go in here to the third icon over, or go into the layer menu and go to layer mask and choose reveal all, you'll notice it adds a layer that has white filled in there. White will reveal everything on the image. Now, instead of using the eraser tool, what I'm going to use is the brush tool. Using the same type of brush, let's get a nice soft edge. And we know that the layer is white. The layer mask is white, so I'm actually going to paint with black. and I'm going to brush away that edge again. Now notice it's doing the same thing it did a moment ago. It's brushing away and giving me a nice faded edge to it. However, I haven't deleted anything. I'm merely hiding that through the use of this layer mask. Notice what happened on the layer mask. It's painted this area black. So black is actually hiding what is on the layer. If I hold down the Shift key and click directly on that layer mask, I can temporarily disable it, and you can see it reveals everything on the layer. So I've deleted nothing. I've merely hidden it from view through the use of a layer mask. And this is one of the greater things, again, about layers, is that not only do you have the ability to stack images on top of one another and ultimately build an overall image, but all those elements are separate, and you can hide and reveal parts of those layers through the use of a layer mask. Another great feature when it comes to working with layers. And you can, of course, have things like blend modes that allow you to blend one image with one layer with another below it. For instance, if I were to select this mountain range layer, and let's go ahead and go to normal and change it to overlay, for instance, you can see how it will blend in with the background image. You can try different blend modes to see what kind of effects you get. But again, the layer is on its own layer, and it's basically affecting the pixels underneath it, but it is not mixing with them and making it a permanent change. I can always turn that layer on or off, or I can go and change that blend mode back to normal. I have all these options. This is one of the greatest things, again, about Photoshop, is its versatility when it comes to layers. You can add, stack all different types of things, whether it's text, images, shapes, all these different types of elements can be combined. Even 3D. If you have Photoshop Extended, you can add 3D elements on 3D layers and then mix them and blend them and do different things to them and still keep them as separate items. So again, layers are one of the greater things about Photoshop. There's actually a couple of books by Matt Klaskowski on the subject, specifically on layers. That is how important a feature it is that it has its own book on the specific subject of layers. A lot of different things you can do with layers, and we're going to be taking a look at those and using them consistently throughout all this training.